Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my Line of God's Daily Dive series. As usual, before I discuss what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I want to go ahead and read you a chapter from the Bible. Today I will be continuing with the second book of Moses called Exodus, chapter 2. And there went a man of the house of Levi and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch. And put the child therein. And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself by the river. And her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me, as thou killedst the Egyptian? And Moses feared, and said, Surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man. And he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died. And the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried. And their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning. And God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect for them. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I think this is what's so fascinating about this is with the story of Moses. Moses is raised in Pharaoh's house. It's very beautiful. In Genesis 2:10, the woman knows that Moses is a Hebrew. She says in Genesis 2:8, this is one of the Hebrews' children. In that later verse, I mentioned Genesis. Excuse me, I think Genesis. I should be saying Exodus. I apologize. Exodus 2:10. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. Now, the next verse, the very next verse says, and it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown. So it's a little ambiguous here, but to me the understanding seems straightforward. That Moses was raised in the house of Pharaoh, while the other Israelites were in a different situation. Okay? Now what does it say? It says, and it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. Okay, so the idea is very powerful there, which is that Moses has a privileged life in the house of Pharaoh. He is Pharaoh's nephew, right? Yeah, because he's the son of Pharaoh's sister. Not by blood, but he is nevertheless Pharaoh's nephew. And Moses chooses, when he sees, and he went out the second day, behold, men of the Hebrews strove together. And it came to pass in those when Moses was gone, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And then the Hebrew responds, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendedst thou to kill me, as thou killedst the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. So the idea is this. Moses grows up in the house of Pharaoh and has a privileged life. But when the moment of choosing comes, he chooses that he's a Hebrew, right? Because a moment is going to come now where Moses has to make a decision of who does he stand with. Does he stand, because he lives in the house of Pharaoh. He's the nephew of Pharaoh. He does not appear to be living in bondage. He appears to be looking at the taskmaster, not being the victim of the taskmaster. And who does Moses choose? He chooses his Hebrew brethren over the Egyptian, even though he grew up privileged like the Egyptians. Now, of course, there would have been differences, right? But still, it doesn't appear that Moses grew up in hard labor. And nevertheless, he chooses what he does. So it's very telling in that sense, because that's the life that Moses decides. Now I want to do a little bit. Of course, then we know on that he goes to the land of Midian, and he marries Zipporah, of course, and she gives him a son, Gershom. And then the idea is that God hears the prayers of the Israelites, that they don't want to be in bondage. And of course, we'll pick up with that in the next chapter. I want to do a little bit of getting some different translations on some of these verses, because the KJV English is not always the easiest to understand. I want to understand exactly what's happening. So first, so the Egyptian is only beating a Hebrew. Okay, so it's the word smiting is used, or what's the word here? He's smiting. Smiting sometimes has a killing interpretation. But no. And Moses, of course, does kill the Egyptian and buries him in the sand. And then the idea is he sees 2 Hebrews fighting with each other. And he says, why are you fighting each other? You're brothers, basically, right? Why are you brothers fighting? And they give him the answer saying, who are you to tell us anything? You killed the Egyptian. And Moses is worried because what he's done was seen. And of course then Pharaoh, the idea is that Pharaoh wants to kill Moses. And so Moses goes to the land of Midian, and the story will pick back up in tomorrow's video. So with that, I want to go ahead and say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe. So it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.